First off, I would like to thank the families and the local representatives for coming along. This is probably the start of something that really has never happened in our community before, where at long last the families are getting an opportunity to take a stand and for to find out the truth and hopefully end up getting justice. Although there's a number of things within the report that we are looking changed, there's also a number of things that we're looking added into the report of the HET. But we would like to thank the HET first off for the effort that they have made. The families do appreciate it because it's the first time anybody has shown interest in what actually has happened here in South Armagh. The people that carried out the Kingsmill massacre was the Provisional IRA. That is now being confirmed, although the families have known it for quite a while. And not actually the only responsible for Kingsmill, they're responsible for a large number of murders in South Armagh, which was nothing short of ethnic cleansing of the Protestant community. The families is not finished. We will continue to fight on, and indeed the support is growing within South Armagh, within the community for the victims. There's people coming up in the street saying at long last some of the truth is starting to come out. And the one thing I'd like to say to the families here, and I'll say it publicly, there's a bit of disappointment that the names aren't directly named in this report, but whenever you cross-reference them, and especially with other reports, you know exactly who they are. If they're not named by the time this report is finished, I'll be naming them anyway. So I can assure you, these people will be named and shamed. And the other thing I would like to say, they didn't come from 1,000 miles away. Unfortunately, these were our neighbours who carried out this butchery. And that's what it was. Utter butchery. And what happened on the night of the Kingsmill massacre, and I know this is painful for the families, but it has to be told. Not only did they herd them together to cut them down like dogs, whenever they heard them, the individuals still moaning on the ground, they went around and shot them individually. You couldn't do it to a bunch of dogs. These people are still walking about today.
The families would wish to thank the HET for carrying out a detailed, thorough and professional investigation of these murders. The report, though far from answering questions about the original investigation, does highlight a degree of either incompetency and lack of direction and motivation, or more alarmingly, a deliberate attempt to suppress evidence for whatever purpose. Regardless of these reasons, by today's standards, the seemingly desultory investigation would constitute a gross neglect of duty for these men. It should be remembered that the RUC, like any police force, had the responsibility to guard, watch and patrol in order to protect life and property, but in addition had a duty to fully investigate crime and take all steps to ensure perpetrators were brought to justice. Many events of the Troubles have been reviewed since the Good Friday Agreement, and a number such as the Bloody Sunday, Billy Wright, Pat Finnegan and Rosemary Nelson incidents have had widespread media interest, with subsequent inquiries called for and concluded. The Kingsmill massacre is no exception, and due to the clear neglect of duty by everyone involved, and that includes the government as well, of course, the surviving families would expect nothing less than a full inquiry into an attempt to discover why such unacceptable neglect and incompetence occurred, and to alleviate fears that these men were merely sacrificial lambs in a dirty war.
Can I say that I am pleased that this report has been at last completed, and I join with others to thank the HET for producing a detailed report. The
report has been very difficult to read. I have to say, when I read it first, I wept because of the slaughter of innocent men, innocent workmen. And whilst the report sheds much truth on the events, it doesn't at this stage provide the families with a means of justice. And what Karen has outlined in terms of a public inquiry, I think, is the important next stage here. And I've already taken the opportunity to raise it with the Irish government at the highest level. This report clearly exposes the IRA as being directly responsible. But again, it is very disappointing that it doesn't actually name those known to have been involved in the killings. And whilst Republicans have consistently denied involvement in this incident for many years, now that this report has been published, I believe the leadership of the Republican movement has serious questions to answer about Kingsmills. Why did this happen? Why was it allowed to happen? Who was involved? And are they now prepared to accept their responsibilities? The ballistics details are completely devastating. They link the killers of the 10 Protestant workmen to countless other workers and attacks both in the years prior to Kingsmills and the years which followed. But if Kingsmills had occurred in any other part of the United Kingdom, the local police would have been given extra resources overnight. The British government should have directed more resources to the police who had to deal with these horrendous incidents. But it is also important to remember that successive Irish governments refused to cooperate with many extradition requests, which could have made a significant difference in bringing the Kingsmills murderers to account, perhaps even have prevented the massacre itself. The publication of this report and the details contained within it are yet more evidence of the need for an independent inquiry into the ambivalent attitude of successive Irish governments and their collusion in the murder of their so-called fellow countrymen.
Kingsmill was an indescribable incident. It cast a shadow and still casts a shadow not only over this part of Northern Ireland, but had ramifications right across the province. And so it ought, because it was a truly horrendous, indescribable incident. It cannot be described as anything but genocide. It also has to be described for what it was, sectarian genocide, because it was a deliberate killing of people because of their religion. That's clear from the manner in which it was carried out and the separating out of those they wanted to kill. And it is quite clear that it was a sectarian killing of Protestants on a genocidal scale. It is also now clear from this report that it was a planned genocidal attack which didn't happen as a knee-jerk to anything else, but which was a conscious, deliberate, planned genocidal attack upon the Protestant community. If this had happened anywhere else, this matter would have been investigated to the nth degree, and those responsible, all of them, would have been brought to justice. But the tragic reality is that there is a certain political inconvenience in bringing to justice some of those who may have been involved in this matter. I note that the Member of Parliament, so-called for this area, has been strangely silent about his knowledge of this matter and about this incident. And I think there are many whom it is politically convenient, not just in the Republican community, but wider than that, to try and brush all of this under the carpet. But you cannot, you must not lie down under this. Let this be but the beginning of the unearthing of the full truth. And though we now have such a distorted system of justice under the Good Friday Agreement, that even if people are made accountable, they will have sentences which make a mockery of what they did. But still, the bringing to justice of those responsible for this, one of the seminal, most horrendous incidents of many conducted by the IRA, is something which should motivate and drive every individual of whatever persuasion who has any sense of right from wrong.
Parts of the report do make some concerning reading. I believe that it is clear that enough resources weren't brought to book to deal with the situation, and it certainly concerns me that that wasn't the case. I do believe that most of the suspects were able to live freely in the Irish Republic. Some of those suspects were British citizens, actually. And I believe that not only the Irish government, but the British government has questions to answer in relation to this. I believe that more should have been done to deal with that situation. These people, evidence or no evidence, at that particular time, they should have been brought to book and questioned at least on the situation on those murders. Certainly, for known suspects to be able to live freely in the Irish Republic is an absolute disgrace, and I believe, of course, at that time in the Irish Republic, it was almost impossible to get someone extradited at that particular time. But certainly, enough was not done, and I believe that both governments share blame for that.
There you go. Today we've seen the Kingsmill report coming out, and we've seen the number of people in the hall who were the families and people connected to the families. That's also connected to the group. We are in a position where we have no way of giving them the proper support. Why? Because OFM, DFM is withholding it from us, withholding the funding, withholding the opportunity to help these people. They talk about moving on. Well, you've seen what was sitting in that hall today, and you've seen the amount of hurt and pain, or you've heard it. We're saying to the government, give us our funding and let us get on with the work that we need to be doing. You are trying to bring discredit to the names of them good people that are sitting in that hall and sitting within this organisation. It has to stop, and it has to stop now.